Time is the most valuable gift you've been given, and yet it's the one thing people waste like it's endless. Everyone talks about dreams, about calling, about purpose, but none of that matters if you keep wasting time. You can lose money and make it back. You can lose relationships and rebuild them. But time only moves in one direction. And the great tragedy is not that people run out of time, it's that they don't even realize they're spending it. You think you have time. That's the trap. That's the lie. You assume you can start tomorrow. You assume you can pursue your purpose someday. But someday never comes for those who live like they're promised tomorrow, and you're not. You don't know what the next hour holds. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't even know if you'll wake up next week. And yet you live like time owes you something, like you're entitled to another chance, another year, another season. But the truth is, you're not entitled to anything, not a second more than what you already have. And if you keep living like the clock will wait for you, you'll miss everything that matters. Time is sacred. Every minute is holy. Every breath you take is borrowed. And when you waste time, you're not just being careless, you're being unfaithful, because how you treat your time is how you treat your calling. And how you treat your calling is how you treat the one who gave it to you. So stop pretending you have more than you do. Stop acting like there's always going to be a better day to begin. Stop imagining a perfect future while doing nothing in the present. The enemy doesn't have to destroy you to defeat you. All he has to do is distract you, get you scrolling, get you comparing, get you lost in the noise. He'll keep you busy chasing shadows while your destiny sits untouched. He doesn't need to break your legs. He just needs to keep your feet still. And it works. It works because we've been conditioned to live distracted. Every day becomes a loop. Wake up, consume, react, scroll, sleep, repeat. You lose track of the hours. You lose track of yourself. And then you wonder why you feel empty, why you feel stuck, why everything feels loud but nothing feels clear. It's because you haven't made time sacred. You haven't made discipline a priority. You haven't made growth non-negotiable, but you can change that. You can decide right now that the time you have left won't be wasted, that you won't let another year go by full of almost, later, and maybe. That you won't look back in 5 years and wish you had started today. It starts by reclaiming your focus. Not tomorrow, not when you feel like it, not when everything lines up. Now, because now is all you have. Now is when foundations are built. Now is when you sharpen the gifts you've ignored. Now is when you break cycles that stole your years. Now is when you begin. So take inventory. Where is your time going? What are you giving your best hours to? Who has access to your energy? What habits are robbing you blind? These questions aren't just about productivity. They're about alignment. Because time doesn't just move you forward, it reveals what you truly value. And when you say you want purpose but spend your days avoiding it, your time tells the truth, your mouth won't. So let your time speak what your faith believes. Let your habits reflect what your calling requires. Let your priorities mirror what your soul longs for. And when you do, you won't just feel more focused, you'll feel more free. Because clarity always follows obedience, peace always follows alignment, and fulfillment always follows faithfulness. This is how you live like time matters. This is how you honor the hours God placed in your hands. This is how you begin again without apology, without delay. So don't waste another second. Most people don't struggle because they lack potential. They struggle because they lack perspective. They keep looking outward at other people's lives, at trends, at opinions, and never pause long enough to look inward. They measure success by comparison. They measure progress by proximity. They evaluate worth by applause. But they never ask the one question that really matters. Am I becoming who I was created to be? That question requires silence. It requires self-honesty. It requires you to stop blaming everyone else for why you're not growing and start taking responsibility for your own soil. Because your life doesn't change when your situation does. It changes when your mindset does. And if you never look inward, you'll never realize just how much of your frustration is self-inflicted. You'll never see how many of your limitations aren't walls. They're mirrors. They reflect back what you haven't dealt with, what you keep avoiding, what you keep projecting onto others. So stop staring out the window and start facing the mirror. You can't fix what you won't face. And you can't grow from what you keep blaming. Maybe it's not that they didn't support you. Maybe it's that you never committed. Maybe it's not that life didn't give you opportunity. Maybe it's that you didn't stay consistent. Maybe it's not that no one understands you. Maybe it's that you never took time to understand yourself. We're so quick to diagnose the problem out there, we forget that the deepest breakthroughs start in here. In your thoughts, in your habits, in your private disciplines, in your daily patterns. It's not what others are doing that's holding you back. It's what you're doing or not doing when no one's watching. And that's where transformation begins. Not in applause, but in accountability. Not in performance, but in process. Not in external validation, but in internal refinement. But refinement requires honesty. And honesty is hard because it's easier to blame than to build. It's easier to scroll than to study. It's easier to vent than to heal. It's easier to distract yourself than to sit still with yourself. Yet the hard thing is often the holy thing because nothing changes until you change. Not your job, not your relationships, not your results. You can shift environments and still carry the same dysfunction. You can meet new people and repeat the same patterns. You can chase new goals and sabotage them just like the last ones. So if you're tired of seeing the same cycles, look inward. Where are you undisciplined? Where are you double-minded? Where are you letting your emotions run your decisions? Where are you still tolerating what you should have confronted? You can't transform what you keep excusing. You can't grow what you keep ignoring. You can't become whole while pretending you're already healed. So stop polishing the outside while the inside remains unattended. God doesn't bless pretense, He blesses surrender. And surrender starts with facing yourself, not with shame, not with guilt, but with conviction. Conviction that says, I was made for more, and I'm willing to do the work it takes to become it. Because personal growth isn't glamorous. It's hidden, it's daily, it's uncomfortable, and it's slow. But it is worth it. Because as you grow, everything you touch grows with you. Your relationships become healthier. Your time becomes more sacred. Your spirit becomes more steady. Your words carry more weight. Why? Because they flow from a place of integrity, not insecurity. So stop outsourcing your growth to your environment. Start owning your development. Read more. Pray more. Reflect more. Question your motives, audit your habits, practice discipline when no one else is watching, learn to encourage yourself in the silence, and most of all, learn to enjoy becoming. Because growth isn't just about goals, it's about identity. It's about closing the gap between who you are and who you were always meant to be. And no one else can walk that path for you. So stop watching everyone else live their life and start showing up fully for your own. There's a reason you feel overwhelmed even when nothing major has gone wrong. There's a reason your spirit feels cloudy even when life seems fine on the outside. It's called distraction. Not destruction, distraction. The enemy knows he doesn't need to destroy your life if he can simply distract your focus. He doesn't need to wreck your foundation. He just needs to pull your eyes off it. He doesn't need to steal your calling. He just needs to flood your day with noise. He doesn't have to stop your growth. He just has to slow it, dull it, delay it. And that's what distraction does best. It doesn't scream, it creeps in, slowly, quietly, replacing your clarity with clutter. And the most dangerous part, it feels normal. It feels harmless. Scrolling, clicking, consuming, comparing, checking, reacting. It's endless. It's addictive. And it's all designed to keep your mind too full to hear truth, too busy to seek wisdom, too entertained to be transformed. You say you're tired, but it's not your body that's exhausted. It's your attention. Your attention has been pulled in 1,000 directions. You're not living distracted because you don't care. You're distracted because the world keeps trying to shape what you care about. And you haven't been guarding that gate. So now everything gets in. Every opinion, every algorithm, every trending soundbite, every carefully curated image of someone else's success. It all enters, settles, and slowly disorients your soul. Distraction is not a surface issue, it's a spiritual one. It's not just that you can't concentrate, it's that your spirit is under attack. Because if your focus determines your future, then distraction is the weapon designed to sabotage your destiny. The enemy doesn't need to make you fall. He just needs you to drift. And drifting never feels dangerous until you realize how far you've gone. You stop praying. Not because you don't believe, but because you're too busy. You stop creating, not because you lack ideas, but because your mind's too noisy to hear them. You stop growing, not because you're stuck, but because you're overstimulated. That's how distraction works. It replaces discipline with dopamine. It trades legacy for likes. It makes you mistake activity for progress. But activity without direction is just exhaustion. So you have to fight for your focus, not passively, not casually, intentionally. Because every great purpose requires great attention, and attention is a choice. You choose what you give your energy to. You choose what enters your ears, your eyes, your mind, your heart. You choose where your thoughts live. You choose whether you drift or decide. So choose well. Silence the noise, shut the feed, cut the comparison, make room to think again, make room to feel again, make room to hear the whisper of truth again, because you will never move forward until you reclaim the mind that was meant to lead you. This world is loud by design, but transformation never comes from noise. It comes from stillness. It comes from discipline. It comes from tuning out the chaos long enough to tune in to what matters. So create boundaries. Build habits that protect your clarity. Practice saying no to what doesn't align. Stop giving your sacred attention to what doesn't deserve it. You don't need to know everything everything that's happening everywhere. You just need to know what God's doing inside of you. And the moment you make focus your priority, everything begins to shift. You stop spinning in circles. You stop carrying anxiety that isn't yours. You stop measuring progress by someone else's timeline. You get clear. You get still. You get realigned, because nothing grows in a scattered field, and your life was never meant to be lived in fragments. Discipline is not glamorous. It rarely feels good. It often feels like resistance, but it is the bridge between your desire and your destiny, between what you want and what you're actually walking in, between who you dream of being and who you really are. Without discipline, dreams decay. Without discipline, potential stays locked inside of you. Without discipline, time passes, but nothing changes. And the hard truth is, most people will never reach what they were created for. Not because they lack talent, not because God didn't call them, but because they refused to submit to the process of discipline. Because discipline isn't about motivation. Motivation fades. Inspiration disappears. But discipline keeps showing up even when you don't feel like it. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks who you're becoming. It tells you to get up when your body wants to rest. It tells you to keep going when your mind says quit. It tells you to be consistent when your emotions scream for comfort. That's what separates the fruitful from the frustrated, the consistent from the constantly starting over, the stable from the scattered. And it's not just about doing more. It's about doing what matters most on the days when it feels least convenient. It's about training your spirit to obey when your flesh wants to run. It's about aligning your habits with your higher calling, because your future doesn't respond to your feelings. It responds to your decisions. What you do daily shapes who you become permanently. And if you're not disciplined in the small things, you'll never be trusted with the big ones. People want promotion without preparation. They want reward without responsibility. They want impact without integrity. But God doesn't bless hype. He blesses habits. So don't just pray for more, prepare for more. Don't just want to grow, work for growth. Don't just dream big, discipline deep. The people who rise aren't the ones who do everything right. They're the ones who refuse to quit when it gets hard. The ones who keep planting even when nothing is growing. The ones who stay faithful when no one is watching. That's discipline. And it's forged in the secret place, not in the spotlight, not on the platform, but in the private moments when you choose obedience over ease, when you choose structure over comfort, when you choose consistency over chaos. So stop waiting for it to feel right. Start doing what you know is right. Set the alarm. Turn off the noise. Get in the Word. Build the system. Make the choice. Again and again and again. Because results don't come from intensity. They come from consistency. Not once, not sometimes, but daily. And the beauty of discipline is this: it multiplies. The more you walk in it, the more natural it becomes. The more you honor it, the more fruitful your life becomes. The more you practice it, the more peace you carry. And peace is not the absence of pressure. Peace is the presence of order, and order comes through discipline. So don't resist it. Embrace it. Build it. Fight for it. Because one day you'll look back and realize it wasn't the moments of passion that shaped your life. It was the quiet choices of discipline, the ones no one saw, the ones no one praised, the ones that slowly built the foundation strong enough to carry what you were born for. Comparison is a thief, a silent one. It doesn't show up loudly or violently. It creeps in through glances, through scrolling, through subtle measurements of someone else's timeline against your own. And before you realize it, your joy is gone. Not because anything broke, but because you let someone else's highlight reel steal your contentment. It happens fast. You start to feel behind. You start to feel small. You start to doubt what once felt clear. And all of it. Not because your life changed, but because your focus did. Comparison doesn't just distort your vision. It poisons your purpose. It tricks you into thinking that value is based on visibility, that worth is measured by applause, that success looks the same for everyone. And when you start believing that, you start betraying yourself. You begin chasing things that don't belong to you. You begin copying rhythms that don't fit your soul. You begin doubting gifts that were never meant to look like anyone else's. That's how dangerous comparison is. It doesn't just distract you, it rewrites your identity slowly, subtly. And if you're not careful, you wake up one day successful in someone else's assignment and empty in your own. But here's the truth. No one can run your race. No one can carry your calling. No one can live your life better than you. You were created with precision, with purpose, with a specific design. And that design doesn't need validation. It needs stewardship. It needs alignment. It needs trust. Because God didn't make a mistake when He made you. He didn't forget to add something. He didn't leave you unfinished. You were crafted exactly how you were meant to be for the roads you were born to walk. So stop looking left and right. Start looking within. Comparison fades when clarity rises, and clarity comes from focus, not on what they're doing, not on how far they've gone, but on what you've been given, on what you're responsible for, on what's in your hands. Joy doesn't grow in competition, it grows in contentment. Peace doesn't rise from envy, it rises from presence. And purpose doesn't unfold through comparison, it unfolds through obedience. So stay in your lane, guard your eyes, protect your mind. And when you feel the pull to measure yourself against someone else, pause. Remind yourself of the truth. Your worth isn't on their timeline. Your value isn't in their visibility. Your identity isn't found in their journey. It's found in who you are becoming when no one's looking. That's what matters. Because when you stop comparing, you start living. You start noticing the beauty in your own growth. You start finding joy in your own progress. You start building momentum that doesn't need to be validated to be real. And in that space, where contentment replaces comparison, you finally feel free. Free to walk your pace. Free to celebrate others without resenting yourself. Free to build slowly, deeply, quietly. Because you're no longer trying to prove anything. You're just trying to be faithful. And that's where joy lives, not in being seen, but in being steady. Too many people are waiting for the perfect time. Waiting for the right feeling, waiting until they have more clarity, more support, more resources, waiting until the fear goes away. But here's the hard truth. That moment you're waiting for may never come. There will never be a perfect time. There will never be a moment when everything aligns just right. There will never be a version of you that feels completely ready. So stop waiting. Start moving. Because motion is what creates clarity. Action is what builds confidence. Obedience is what opens doors. If you sit back waiting for permission, you'll watch your purpose pass you by. If you wait until you feel brave, you'll grow old wondering what could have been. If you wait for the fear to disappear, you'll never discover what's on the other side of it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's movement in the presence of it. It's stepping forward while your hands still shake. It's showing up when your voice still trembles. It's trusting that something holy happens when you act, not when you feel ready, but when you choose to be faithful. Because the truth is, waiting can feel like wisdom, but it's often just fear in disguise. It wears the mask of patience. It sounds like preparation, but underneath it all, it's delay, it's hesitation, it's procrastination dressed up to look responsible. And meanwhile, the life you were meant to build is waiting on the other side of one step, one decision, one act of obedience. So what if you stopped asking, what if I fail? And started asking, what if I don't move at all? What if your fear of starting is actually more dangerous than the risk of failure? What if the cost of hesitation is higher than the cost of mistakes? Because you can learn from failure. You can grow from falling. But you can't do anything with hesitation. Hesitation doesn't teach, it only robs. So take the step, make the call, write the page, start the thing, not because you're certain, but because you've decided to stop waiting. You've decided to stop letting comfort call the shots. You've decided that obedience matters more than outcome. You've decided that your future deserves more than your fear. And here's the secret. Most people don't talk about momentum builds fast. The first step is the hardest. The second still feels awkward. But by the third, something clicks. You feel it. You start to breathe different, think different, move different. Not because the fear disappeared, but because you stopped giving it power. You started acting like you believe the truth. And belief is always proven by action. So if you say you believe in the vision, show it. If you say you trust the process, prove it. If you say you want to grow, move like it. Because faith without action is noise. It may sound good, but it won't change anything. It's only when you combine conviction with motion that transformation begins. And you don't need a full plan to move forward. You just need a step. You don't need a crowd cheering you on. You just need to choose obedience. You don't need to feel fearless. You just need to keep walking. Because sometimes the only thing standing between you and everything you were made for is the lie that says, wait a little longer. Faith is easy when everything makes sense. When the plan is clear, the timing feels right, and the outcome looks certain. But real faith begins where understanding ends. It shows up when you have more questions than answers, when the doors don't open, when the prayers seem unanswered, when nothing around you gives you a reason to keep believing, and yet you do. Faith is not a feeling. It's not a warm emotion. It's not something you lean on when things are going well. Faith is a decision, a posture, a discipline. And sometimes faith looks like walking when you'd rather sit, moving when you feel stuck, obeying when you don't see the full picture. Because God rarely shows you the whole plan. He gives you steps, not blueprints. He gives you moments, not maps. He gives you just enough light for the next move and asks you to trust Him with the rest. And that trust is tested in the waiting, in the silence, in the seasons when you feel forgotten, in the spaces between promise and fulfillment. But silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. God is not ignoring you. He's preparing you, shaping you, aligning the details, refining your heart so that what He gives you won't crush you when it comes. And that's hard to accept when you're tired. Tired of praying, tired of showing up, tired of holding on to a vision that feels further with every passing day. But the tension you're feeling, that's where faith is formed, in the stretch, in the in-between, in the fire that burns away everything false and leaves you with what's real. And what's real is this: God has never stopped working, even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it, even when you've run out of words and strength and patience. He's working in the background, in the waiting room, in the wilderness. He's not late. He's thorough. He's not withholding. He's building. He's not punishing. He's protecting. You may think you're ready, but there are some things only time can test. There are some depths of trust that can only be formed in delay. And what you think is a detour may be the very thing that keeps you grounded when the blessing comes. So don't give up in the waiting. Don't let delay redefine your identity. Don't let silence rewrite what God already spoke. What He promised, He will finish. What He started, He will sustain. What He ordained, He will make a way for. But He needs your faith to meet His faithfulness, not just when it's easy, but especially when it isn't. So when the doubts come, stand anyway. When the fear creeps in, speak truth anyway. When the path feels uncertain, take the step anyway. Because faith isn't just what you feel, it's what you do when feelings fade. It's what you build when nothing makes sense. It's what you hold on to when everything around you says, let go. And sometimes the greatest expression of faith is not a shout, it's endurance. It's the quiet decision to keep trusting, keep moving, keep showing up, not because you see the outcome, but because you know the one who holds it. Sometimes the greatest attacks on your life don't come through open disaster. They come through people, through relationships, through voices that sound familiar but carry something heavy. And if you're not spiritually alert, you'll miss what's really happening behind the scenes. Not every disagreement is just a misunderstanding. Not every conflict is about personality. Not every distraction is just random timing. There are spiritual forces at work, and yes, they can operate through people. Not in some horror movie sense, but in subtle, strategic ways. Words spoken with a smile, but soaked in manipulation. Conversations that stir division instead of peace. Presence that carries confusion, not clarity. This isn't about paranoia, it's about discernment. Because if the enemy can't get to you directly, he'll try to use someone close to you. Someone who speaks just enough truth to lower your guard. Someone who acts just kind enough to earn your trust. Someone who mirrors your pain so you confuse their voice with comfort. But underneath it all, there's another assignment at work, and you'll know it not just by what's said, but by what it produces. Division, confusion, doubt, spiritual fatigue. These aren't just relational symptoms, they're spiritual signs. Because real attacks don't always come dressed as enemies. They often come disguised as companions. And that's why you have to pay attention. Not to how people appear, but to how your spirit responds when they speak, when they linger, when they influence. So how do you know when something deeper is happening? You start noticing patterns, sudden conflict that makes no sense, a constant atmosphere of tension and heaviness, the slow erosion of your spiritual hunger, repeated compromise where there was once conviction. You feel off and can't explain why. That's not random. That's warfare. And if you're not alert, you'll keep trying to fix it with natural means, more conversations, more compromise, more people pleasing, when what you really need is spiritual authority. You need to draw a line in the spirit. You need to cover your space in prayer. You need to ask God to expose every hidden agenda and break every invisible chain. Because what's spiritual can't be solved with surface level solutions. This isn't about cutting people off out of anger. It's about protecting the calling on your life. It's about guarding the clarity you fought so hard to keep. It's about refusing to let your purpose be diluted by what feels familiar but is spiritually fatal. And when God begins to reveal those assignments, listen, when your spirit keeps feeling uneasy around someone, don't ignore it. When your peace consistently disappears after certain conversations, pay attention. When your energy gets drained in certain atmospheres, ask why. Discernment is a gift, and it's one you must use boldly because the cost of silence is too high. The cost of spiritual passivity is too heavy. And you were not called to be blind. You were called to walk in truth, in power, in clarity. So start praying over your relationships. Start testing the fruit of every connection. Start asking the hard questions. Is this pulling me closer to God or further? Is this stirring faith or feeding fear? Is this sharpening my spirit or dulling my discernment? And if it's not from Him, release it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. You just have to obey. Because what you tolerate in silence can eventually dominate in spirit. And the longer you allow what drains you, the harder it becomes to protect what defines you. Some of the biggest delays in your life are not caused by the devil. They're caused by your habits. You're praying for open doors, but walking with closed hands. You're asking for breakthrough, but holding on to the very things that block it. You want clarity, but you refuse to surrender your patterns. And the truth is, there are habits, decisions, and heart postures that can keep the blessings of God at a distance. Not because He doesn't want to bless you, but because He won't bless what goes against His nature. You can't walk in obedience while hiding disobedience. You can't live in freedom while protecting hidden bondage. You can't claim to want God's will while constantly choosing your own. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most of the things that block your growth don't look evil. They look normal. They look justified. They look small. But small habits repeated over time create massive strongholds. That grudge you keep feeding, that pride you keep defending, that secret sin you keep justifying, that laziness you keep calling rest, they all grow quietly, deeply, and eventually they shape the atmosphere of your life. You're asking for peace, but you refuse to forgive. You're asking for direction, but you ignore conviction. You're asking for favor, but you won't submit to correction. And God is patient, but He's also holy. He doesn't just want to bless you, He wants to build you. And building requires demolition. It requires letting go of what doesn't belong. So ask yourself honestly, what are you holding on to that is holding you back? Where have you normalized dysfunction? Where have you made room for compromise? Where have you silenced conviction to protect convenience? This isn't about shame. It's about freedom. Because the habits that keep you stuck aren't just hurting you, they're keeping you from what God has already prepared for you. The delay isn't always denial. Sometimes it's discipline. God is waiting Not because he's punishing you, but because he's preparing you to carry what's coming. And what's coming is too holy to rest on a foundation of compromise. So clean the house, take inventory, forgive what still eats at you, confess what you've been hiding, release what you keep running back to. Because the moment you align your life with truth is the moment you unlock what's been waiting. Blessing doesn't just follow prayer, it follows obedience. Favor doesn't just chase those who ask, it rests on those who walk in surrender. And sometimes the most powerful prayer isn't God bless me, but God break me. Break the habits that dull my hunger. Break the pride that blocks correction. Break the patterns that keep me numb. Break whatever doesn't belong so I can finally become. Because this is not about performance. It's about posture. And the posture of blessing is always humility. It says, I'll give up anything if it means gaining more of you. And when you mean that, not just with words, but with your actions, your schedule, your thoughts, heaven moves, doors open, chains fall, peace returns. Not because you earned it, but because you made room for it. Everything you've heard, every truth, every warning, every encouragement comes down to this. There is a war for your focus, your time, your calling, and your soul. It's not random, it's not harmless, it's not just a series of bad days or emotional funks. There is strategy behind your distractions. There is design behind your discouragement. There is intent behind your temptations. Because the enemy knows what you carry. He knows what you're capable of. He knows the impact your obedience can create. And his goal has never been to scare you. It's to subtly separate you from the presence and power of God, not all at once, just little by little. So you stop praying as much. You stop caring as deeply. You stop fighting as boldly. And soon you're just existing. You're busy, but not fruitful. You're loud, but not effective. You're visible, but not aligned. But here's the truth. The enemy cannot erase. God still sees you. Even in your burnout, even in your confusion, even in your lowest, quietest places, he still sees. And not only does he see, he calls. He calls you out of the fog, out of the noise, out of the patterns you thought would never break. He calls you to remember who you are, to rise up, to stand firm, to fight with truth, not with fear, because you were not made for survival. You were made for victory. But victory doesn't come by chance. It comes by decision. A decision to guard your time like it matters, to break your patterns before they break you, to silence the noise and return to the secret place, to stop asking for more and start stewarding what you already have, to stop waiting for change and start walking in obedience, to live like your soul is worth protecting because it is. There is no neutral ground. Every day, you are either being formed by truth or deformed by distraction. You are either moving in the spirit or drifting in the flesh. And if you don't decide who you are, the world will decide for you. So what will it be? Will you continue numbing yourself with what's familiar? Will you keep blaming everything and everyone except your own choices? Will you keep waiting for a sign while the voice of God has already spoken? Or will you wake up? Will you repent? Will you rebuild? Will you stand, even if your legs shake? Will you fight, even if your voice cracks? Will you walk forward even if the way is still unclear? Because every great shift in your life will require a bold choice. Not when it's easy, but when it's hardest. Not when you feel strong, but when you feel weakest. And that's where the power of God shows up. Not in your perfection, but in your surrender. You don't need to fix everything right now. You don't need to feel brave every moment. You just need to say yes. Yes to truth. Yes to alignment. Yes to letting go of what you've outgrown. Yes to picking up the assignment you left behind. Yes to becoming who you were always called to be. Because no scheme of the enemy is greater than the presence of God in you. No distraction is stronger than your decision to return. No habit is more powerful than the grace that's available now. So this is it. This is your moment to stop wasting time, to stop playing small, to stop living halfway in and halfway out. This is your moment to focus, to stand, to obey, and to finally live like you believe you were born for more.